Kratos and the Big Three are some of the most prominent and powerful characters that we have ever seen in fiction, with the Big Three considered by many to not only be the standard when it comes to how iconic they are, but also how powerful that they are within the anime community as well. And Kratos is also widely known and also very powerful too, with how he had killed an entire pantheon of gods with his rage and strength alone. But what would happen if Kratos were to encounter and battle against the Big Three, and who would win? Don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new or enjoy my content, or even comment down below if you'd like to share your thoughts and opinions with me. And also don't forget to follow me on Twitter, as I am on there and post from time to time, and y'all can interact with me outside of my videos. And with everything out of the way, let's go over Kratos' scaling and see how he stacks up against his opposition. Kratos in God of War Ragnarok battles against and defeats Thor, someone who was able to battle against the World Serpent and clash with him so hard that it splintered the Yggdrasil and sent the serpent back in time. This is impressive, as the Yggdrasil was stated to transcend both time and space, and even have branches on the tree that stretch out infinitely, not to mention that all 9 realms occupy the same physical space, but are all on different planes of existence. This is further backed up with another character named Freya, saying that the World Serpent and Thor's battle at Ragnarok could be felt across all 9 realms. And in the God of War card game, which has been confirmed to be canon numerous times, it stated that the Well of Fate contains infinite possibilities, and the Yggdrasil transcends even that as well. And after the battle against Odin, Ragnarok launches an attack that completely destroys Asgard, and Ratatoskr, the caretaker of the World Tree, says that Ragnarok's attack shook the World Tree down to its very roots, and Atreus was able to survive the shockwave of this attack, meaning that Kratos also scales to his durability feat, as he is still stronger than Atreus. And if you take all of this into consideration, then you have Kratos being at around low complex multiversal, with also having infinite 4D to infinite 5D AP. To reiterate, the Yggdrasil is stated to transcend both time and space, which would mean it transcends a 4D space-time continuum. Then you also have branches of the tree being stated to be stretching out infinitely, and the tree resides in the realm between realms, which transcends the World Tree itself, making it 5D. And because Kratos is able to freely move around and exist within this space, this would also make him infinite 5D too. And with his AP out of the way, let's talk about Kratos' speed and see just how fast he really is. Now, there are 2 different speed metas that you could use to scale Norse Kratos. For the first meta, you could use immeasurable speed, and I'll go over this right now. So you all know how I talked about the realm between realms, right? Kratos is able to freely traverse through a branch of the Yggdrasil, and the Yggdrasil, as I said before, is stated to transcend time and space, and the branch is stretching out infinitely. And because the Yggdrasil transcends time itself, this would make him immeasurable speed, since time in this instance cannot be quantified, but he's still moving some type of distance. And the Valkyries in God of War 2018 are able to fly in the realm between realms, and this is shown when Sigrun, the queen of the Valkyries, flies through a realm tear. Realm tears are shown and stated to be holes in reality, which lead to nothing. Mimir, someone who is stated to be one of the most knowledgeable men in the Norse saga, calls the realm between realms a void, and the Valkyrie known as Gunnar is stated to arrive at every conflict across all 9 realms, whether big or small, pretty much instantaneously by traversing the realm between realms, as we see Sigrun do when we fight her in 2018. And Gunnar is also stated to not be the strongest or fastest of the Valkyries, but Sigrun is. And obviously, because Kratos was able to battle against and defeat her, should also grant him the speed feat. So this is the first speed scaling that you could use, and if you decide to use Kratos this way, go for it. And the second one that I'm going to get into is inaccessible speed, and for this scale, you can just scale Kratos off of Freya. Freya is able to use temporal magic and completely stop time, being able to completely stop the sun and the moon from moving across the sky. And that's everything that there is to cover in terms of Kratos' speed scaling. And now we can move on to his hacks and abilities. The main important things to note when it comes to Kratos is his Blades of Chaos and his Rage. I was going to talk about the Power of Hope, but since the Norse saga of games don't really make any mention of it at all, I won't be using it for this video. Anyways, Kratos' Blades of Chaos is stated that when he's in possession of them or is killing people with them, it augments his rage, which is already a power boost on top of a power boost. And when also taking lives with them, they slightly regenerate him and absorb life energy. And as for Kratos' rage, it was stated that when he gives into his rage, every attack he performs regenerates him, and when activated, he becomes slightly faster and stronger. Now, when I think of the word slightly and how it can be used, To me, that feels like it would at least be 2 or 3 times, meaning that at the bare minimum, when counting his amps as well, when in Spartan Rage, he gains a 2 or 3 times increase to his strength and speed, which, as I said before, could also be further increased due to other factors. And that's everything in regards to scaling Kratos. And now that we've covered him, let's get into the first person of the big three and see how they stack up in comparison. Starting with the Straw Hat Pirate, Monkey D. Luffy. When it comes to his AP, there are different ways you can scale him. When Luffy battles against Doflamingo, he hit him with a King Kong gun and folds the city of Dressrosa due to impact. Now, I know many people aren't really a fan of calcs and other forms of real life estimation and math in a fictional series, but I'm using this to at least get a general range on where Luffy could be around this time, and whether it is right or wrong is up to you all, and you guys can comment down below and let me know what you think. Anyways, to continue, the calc of this feat has been shown to be island level, and I do think this is consistent with other calcs within this series, like for example Fujitori's meteors that he was summoning against Law during Dressrosa, based on calcs also being around the range of island level as well, possibly being higher depending on how you calc certain things, and Dressrosa itself is also around this range as well. In any case, the absolute lowest that you could scale Luffy would be around small country to island level, and the absolute highest that you could scale Luffy would be around multi-continental to planetary. For those wanting to see the calcs and feats I'll be referring to here, check the video's description and it should be there. Anyways, there are multiple instances of at least around continental to planetary levels of scaling within One Piece. To start, even all the way back during Skypiea, Enel, who was the major antagonist of this arc, was going to vaporize the country of Skypiea with his Arc Maxim. And for those that doubt Enel could do this feat, the Arc Maxim is a ship that would have allowed Enel to increase his range of his AP in order to perform this feat. And Enel has the AP to do the feat, which he himself confirms. He just doesn't have the range, which is what he needed the ship for. This would have included destroying Giant Jack, which is a mountain-sized beanstalk that was even able to tank the entire island falling out of the sky. Then you have a stronger character in Aokiji, who was a Navy admiral and was able to create a continent of ice by just freezing the sea. And Aokiji was able to fight with and equal Akainu for 10 days before losing, and they were both able to terraform Punk Hazard, which also has been calculated to be around multi-continental. Keep in mind, Akainu was stated to have the Devil Fruit with the greatest attack potency, and Aokiji was able to equal him with his own Devil Fruit, meaning Akainu could also scale to Aokiji's previous feat. And even during the Marineford War, both Whitebeard and Blackbeard were able to perform Sea Quakes. And for those that are unaware, these Sea Quakes were not only tilting the entire Marineford base, but they were also so strong that Sengoku, someone who knows how strong Whitebeard is or should be and has battled him numerous times, states that Whitebeard can destroy the entire world. Now in the One Piece Vivre Card Encyclopedia, it says that Whitebeard having immense power and the ability to destroy the world isn't in reference to his actual power. But this is incorrect because he's using his power to influence said ability of being able to destroy the world. And the manga blatantly contradicts this notion by having it stated by the Navy themselves. And as I said before, Sengoku has fought Whitebeard numerous times and knows what he is actually capable of and what he isn't, and he's saying this in full confidence. He would have no reason to hype up or lie in this situation. And Luffy being able to scale to Kaido, who scales to Whitebeard himself being one of the original 4 emperors, with the emperors all said to at least be relative to each other in terms of power. Because of this, you are able to scale Luffy to possibly planetary levels of power, more specifically when covering his Gear 5 transformation, which has been said numerous times to be the peak of his power and is an exponential increase to his strength. If we take into account his multipliers with his gear transformations, Gear 2 being a 10 times amp to his speed, Gear 3 being a 10 times amp to his strength, Gear 4 having different variations, but still being above both Gear 2 and 3 respectively, it's safe to lowball Gear 4's multipliers to be at least 2 times as strong and as fast as Gear 2 and 3, meaning that when Luffy is using Gear 4, he is at the bare minimum 20 times stronger and faster than his previous gear transformations. And since Gear 5 is stronger than all of his Gear 4 transformations, which we know without a doubt, we can also apply the lowballed multiplier of 2 times, which would then make Gear 5 at the least 40 times stronger and faster than all of his other gear transformations. This could make sense because Luffy, while fighting Kaido in Gear 4 before transforming into Gear 5, was going high diff with Kaido and didn't surpass him until unlocking Gear 5, and was pretty much dominating Kaido afterwards. So with Luffy's AP out of the way, I'll go over his speed next. Now, many people have had contentions with Luffy being light speed, and I don't know why, but especially after the recent chapters of the manga, Luffy is definitely now faster than light. Kizaru, one of the Navy admirals, has the Pika Pika no Mi, which is a double fruit that allows the user to manipulate their body and have the abilities of light. Yes, actual light. It's stated multiple times that Kizaru does indeed possess the ability and can move as literal light itself, and the pacifistas were shown and stated to have exact replicas of Kizaru's lasers, which again is actual light. And it's been said that the emphasis of Kizaru's double fruit is speed, which gives further evidence of Kizaru being baseline light speed and even faster. Luffy, during the most recent chapters of the Egghead arc, battles against Kizaru and is able to not only keep up with him multiple times throughout the fight, but even able to damage him and give him a really hard time. And when taking into account his lowballed stat increases for his gear transformations, Luffy should be at the lowest faster than light or FTL, or if you believe his amps are higher than that, then he could be around the MFTO range at his max. Either interpretation is fine, and there can be cases made for those ranges, any of them. And lastly is to talk about Luffy's hacks and abilities. Firstly is to go over all of his haki that he has access to. Luffy can use armament haki, which allows him to coat his body in armor to both strengthen and defend against attacks. He can also use the advanced form of this haki, advanced armament haki, which allows him to attack the opponent from the inside, bypassing their durability. He can use observation haki, which can sharpen all 5 of his senses to their peak and can even sense people's presence. He can sense people's emotions as well and can also predict people's movements during combat as well, although he needs to be just as fast or faster than his opponents in order to block, evade, etc. And he has the advanced form of this haki too, which lets him see seconds into the future. Luffy also has access to Conqueror's haki, and this allows Luffy to exert his will over people, and if they're weaker than him, they will lose consciousness. It is also important to note that if somebody is relative to Luffy or stronger than him, then they won't be affected by him using this haki, and Luffy has the advanced version of this haki as well, being able to attack his opponents without actually hitting them. With Luffy having all of these different abilities, you would think that this is the end, right? Well, no, because we still have to go over his gear transformations. Now, because I've covered them a bit earlier, I'll just go over each gear and what they do really quickly. Gear 2 allows Luffy to increase his speed by 10 times, making him faster. Gear 3 increases Luffy's strength and makes him stronger. Gear 4 has different versions Luffy has access to, but the main versions that Luffy uses is Bounce Man, which is said to give Luffy a several times amp to all of his strength, and his speed sees some improvement as well. And he has his Snake Man transformation, which Luffy stated makes him faster. This should be faster than the likes of his Bounce Man in Gear 2. And lastly, he has access to his Gear 5. Now with this, Luffy is able to fully utilize his imagination and fight in ways that defy logic. Gear 5 was stated to only be limited by his imagination. This form also allows Luffy to transform whatever he comes into contact with into rubber, and his body is also said to really take on the properties of rubber during this form, and even makes him stronger the more he laughs, and his body automatically adapts on its own while in this form. And this covers everything that Luffy has to offer in this battle, and with him out of the way, I'll go over everybody's favorite knucklehead ninja, Naruto Uzumaki. Now, everyone is familiar with Kaguya's feat with her expansive truth-seeking orb, but depending on how you interpret this feat, then the scaling for Naruto will be affected. In the 4th data book, it says that the orb has the power to let the world come to naught. The definition of naught means nothing or 0. If we take this feat at face value, then that means that Kaguya would have indeed completely destroyed her root dimension, erasing everything within it. And near the end of the description, it says that the truth-seeking orb is a ball of chaos that can even reshape the world. You can argue that Kaguya is possibly universal, and I'll argue why this does and doesn't really make sense, and I'll explain why this doesn't make sense first. Kaguya being able to create dimensions isn't accurate, since in order for her to be able to destroy them, she'd also have to have the power equivalent to that to create them, which the data book doesn't support. In the data book for Kaguya's Ama no Minaka, it says that Kaguya can move the world that she's in and forcibly drag people into whatever dimensions that she chooses. and not necessarily create them. And we see her use her powers of teleportation a lot during the battle, so you could argue that this also further supports this. This is blatantly shown whenever Kaguya uses her technique, moving herself and everyone else from the dimension they're in. Now, if you do believe Kaguya is universal, her truth-seeking orbs were stated to turn the world to naught, naught meaning nothing or absolutely zero. In this specific case, she'll turn her root dimension into nothing and then recreate it. And in the data book, when again discussing her Ame no Minaka, it says that she is creating dimensions as she sees fit. And Kakashi, someone who is really knowledgeable in combat, says that Kaguya is rewriting the world that they're in within an instant. And can even claim she's within this tier of power, from her being able to produce a truth-seeking orb with her own power that is capable of nuking a universe-sized realm, meaning Kaguya does have universal levels of power. Her root dimension also has a day and night cycle, and was shown to have a sun, which means it also has a moon within it, and other stars as well. If you believe that Kaguya would have destroyed just her sun, moon, and dimension, then you could place Kaguya around star levels to even solar system levels of power. But if you believe that Kaguya had numerous other stars alongside her sun, moon, and dimension, with her root dimension really being a time space, which would make it 4D, and is nearly or actually infinite in size, then Kaguya could scale up to universal in her AP. Whether or not you all believe Kaguya is universal, I'll just leave to you all in the comments. I do not believe that she is universal, so I'll just say that she's at least around star level to solar system level, which is the range that I'll be sticking to. Anyways, because Naruto during the Boruto era scales way above the version of himself that had to use all of his power to defeat Kaguya, this grants Naruto star level to solar system levels of power. And with his AP out of the way, let's go over his speed. During the 4th grade ninja war, while Naruto was battling against Madara, Madara decides to attack Naruto with the Light Fang. The Light Fang in the data book being stated to be a beam of light and can cut all things with the speed of light. Many people have contentions with this feat being a FTL feat, and I'll explain why this is a valid feat of speed. Naruto was able to dodge this beam of light, this light speed attack at point blank range. People disagree with this feat since Madara moved his head while performing it, which I don't really seem to understand, because the move itself cuts things at the speed of light. That means that even Madara's head swing that he was performing was also light speed. And not to mention that Madara has full intent to kill Naruto during this moment, as he literally was just pressing him much more than 8th Gate Guy just did during their battle, immediately even resorting to using Limbo to try and gain an edge. I don't see why Madara would use an attack that isn't lethal towards Naruto, and I don't see why he would needlessly move his head on purpose just to let Naruto dodge. It really just doesn't make any sense. And for those who say that Naruto sensed the attack with precog before the Light Fang was fired, this is also incorrect, since in the anime, if you pause it frame by frame, you can see Naruto does not react to the light until after it is about to pierce through his truth-seeking orb. And when it does pierce through the truth-seeking orb, that's when Naruto has his head already lowered to dodge. People will try and discredit the anime in this particular instance, saying that it's not the original source material, which isn't true because the anime shows us Naruto dodging the light, while the manga also again shows us after he dodges the light, which means that it's accurate in the sense that it lets Naruto dodge like he did in the original source material and not have him do some other stuff that he didn't do. But I do feel that I made my point pretty consistent and clear for this, so I won't go over any other speed feats, and we'll just talk about Naruto's hacks and abilities. Now, Naruto has a lot of abilities, and I'll go over all of his important ones. Firstly is Naruto having access to the Nine Tails. I know Naruto doesn't have Kurama currently within Boruto, but this is a Naruto that has everything he could possibly have and not nerfed. I'm pretty sure you guys can understand, but if I have Naruto without Kurama in this instance, it's bad. It's bad trash. Anyways, to continue, the Nine Tails gives Naruto a massive boost, not only to his stats, but his chakra, or in this case, stamina as well. Being able to fight in a war with very limited rest for 2 days straight. Because he has access to his Nine Tails, he also can use things like his KCM2 and even Sage of Six Paths mode. With KCM2, he gains access to his Kurama avatar, which can be argued to give him another increase in power, which the databook also supports. With his Sage of Six Paths mode, Naruto is able to do things that he didn't even know he could do before, or do things unconsciously like floating, having healing so potent that it could stop the 8 gates endgame of death. He can sense things on a different plane of existence and has access to truth-seeking orbs which he can freely change the shape of and can negate durability with when making contact with someone. Naruto also has access to Sage Mode, which was stated to rapidly increase his stats, and with Sage Mode he has access to both Frog Kata and Toad Strike. Frog Kata is stated to ignore durability, and Toad Strike is stated to have no openings at all in terms of offense and defense respectively. And Naruto also has access to Baryon Mode, which is essentially a massive power boost to Naruto's stats, and while using this form, he is able to shave off his opponent's life force by making physical contact with them. Although once he uses this transformation, he does have a time limit that in both the anime and manga seems to be really short, and once he runs out of the time, then Kurama pretty much dies and Naruto can't use him anymore, meaning that this would be a one-time thing for Naruto if push came to shove. And that is everything covering Naruto and his scaling, and with him done, let's go over the Soul Reaper himself, Ichigo Kurosaki. The world of the living, Soul Society, and Hueco Mundo, the 3 realms that help govern the souls in Bleach, and to help stop the overflow and collapse of the universe. The world of the living and the Soul Society are said many times to be parallel realms to each other and are bigger than just mere planets, being shown to have the likes of stars, the sun, and moon within them. We know that these 2 realms are at the very least galaxies in size, because in one of the volume extras which Kubo usually writes to fill us in and help us understand new and certain information, Khan says that he kicked a pebble all the way to a distant galaxy, and if the world of the living and Soul Society are parallel worlds, then they would both also house galaxies within them as well. And Rukia in chapter 1 also refers to the world of the living as a realm, and even Hueco Mundo has a moon and even countless stars in the sky, also making it at the very least solar system sized. You could also argue Hueco Mundo being infinite in size due to Calaveras allowing Rudabon to suck up the Reishi in Hueco Mundo through its roots and create an endless supply of soldiers. Endless meaning to have or seem to have no end. You can further support the realm being infinite with Tokunada's statement of how there is a ceaseless amount of Reishi in Hueco Mundo, with ceaseless meaning constant or unending, which again goes back to support Rudabon being able to create an endless army. There couldn't be an endless army and ceaseless amounts of Reishi in a realm that was just finite in size, just how there can't be an infinite amount of humans on Earth since the planet is finite in size, which would then push Hueco Mundo to universal in size, and a man known as Yuha, once he absorbed the Soul King and Mimihagi, had enough power to completely destroy these realms and reshape them in his own image. There are different interpretations on whether Yuha would have just destabilized them and make them disappear without doing anything himself, or if he would have used his raw power to do so. And for this section, I'll get into why both of these could be valid, by starting with Yuha just destabilizing the realms first. To begin, during his battle with Ichigo, Yuha himself states that he wants to remove the boundaries between the 3 realms and fuse them into one, which would go against him using his raw power to destroy them. This is further supported by the Can't Fear Your Own World novel, with Ginjo noting that he heard Yuha was trying to remove the boundaries between the worlds and fuse them back together, and Tokunada also stating this to Nalil as well. And as for Yuha using his actual raw power and not just destabilizing the barriers, Yuha decides to just absorb the Soul King and Mimihagi and use his own power, which would go against his original plan of just destabilizing the barriers, which makes sense since he decided to change his plan. And we know that Yuha was deciding to use his own power since both Hashvault and Askin, 2 of Yuha's most loyal servants, say that Yuha's power is what's keeping the 3 realms now in balance, and he can use said power to destroy the said realm's balance. The reason I brought all of this up is to say and show that with everything that Yuha has done, Ichigo was still able to battle with, damage, and actually temporarily kill Yuha before actually killing Yuha. Yuha himself states that Ichigo's power is wondrous and that he cannot hold back against him and has to take him seriously, and Ichigo was still able to damage Yuha with his Getsuga Tenshos, those of which were being enhanced by Grand Ray Seros, showing that Ichigo does have AP that is relative to or exceeds that of Yuha, giving Ichigo somewhere around Solar System at his lowest to Universal level AP at his highest interpretation. The next thing I would like to talk about that could place Ichigo being around the galaxy level ranges of power is Ichigo scaling above Grimmy, Now, let me explain this clearly because a lot of people disagree with Grimmy creating a galaxy, and I'm going to explain and prove why he actually did. So for those that don't know, Grimmy's shrift is V, or the Visionary, and its explanation is actually super simple, so stay with me. Grimmy is able to bring whatever he imagines into reality. Grimmy fights against Kenpachi and showcases this ability throughout their entire fight. He creates another him. He shows this ability again when Kenpachi tries to slice him and he imagines that he is harder than even the hardest steel, which works temporarily because Kenpachi just put more force in his slash to just go through. And he summons a meteor from literally nothing and even sends Kenpachi to outer space itself. Now, for some reason, many people have issues with this being outer space, but don't have issues with every other thing Grimmy does. We know this is actually outer space for various reasons. First off, we know that Grimmy can control the degree of how vague or how detailed his imagination is. He can imagine something as vague as just being harder than the hardest steel, and then he can imagine something as detailed and intricate as outer space itself. Secondly, there are tons of stars, and even the pitch blackness of outer space, and even a star cluster in the little corner if you're using the manga version of this fight. The third thing that really solidifies this being outer space is Kenpachi's body's reaction. For those that don't know, when the human body is in outer space and you don't have a spacesuit on, the oxygen in your body will begin to expand and destroy your lungs, and then the blood in your body will boil and eventually obstruct the arteries, which is extremely bad. We see this reaction happen to Kenpachi's body, and Grimmy himself also starts breaking down this exact same process in the manga to Kenpachi while this is happening, meaning that Grimmy did indeed use his power to create outer space, which in the Can't Fear Your Own World novel again also backs up and proves. Being able to create outer space itself automatically puts Grimmy's AP at the very least galaxy level. And the last thing I would like to talk about in regards to Ichigo's AP is Senjomaru's statement and feat within the anime of the 1,000-Year Blood War, since this is really important and can elevate Ichigo's scaling even more when used. For those that are unaware, Kubo is heavily involved with the 1,000-Year Blood War arc of the anime, so much so that he has and can heavily change and dictate what the animators put in certain episodes. One of these things that was Squad Zero having more screen time and showing how powerful that they really are. After the other 3 Squad Zero members sacrificed themselves to allow Senjomaru to utilize their true powers, she states that even just slightly using their real power, they can make the heavens and earth in all 3 realms shake, which is directly shown to us after she says this. We know she is actually talking about the 3 realms or the worlds because Sangai is being used, and she's actually talking about their power and strength doing this with Ryoku being used. She is shaking the heavens and the earth, which is Tenchi being used, and she's making them tremble and shake with Faru being used. I probably just mispronounced those, so I apologize if I did, but just had to clarify and show you guys that this is actually what she was referring to when talking about this. Anyways, because Yuha paid no mind to this at all while battling Ichibe, and because Ichigo scales above this, this will solidify his placement of being universal in terms of AP. And with his AP covered, let's talk about his speed next. All the way back in the Substitute Shinigami arc, Ichigo was able to deflect Ceros from Minos Grande, with Ceros stated to be spiritual beams of light, which the novels also confirm as well. And in the Soul Society arc, Yoruichi, Soifan, and some random Shinigami whose name I forgot are able to dodge the Negacion light, a light that was stated to instantly move targets to a different world, and at the moment the light envelops someone, they are already beyond reach. And Ichigo again scales above the people who did this feat. During the invasion, when Yuha casted the Oshwalen, Lil Toto was able to dodge it. Not only did this light take seconds to reach the Serete from the Royal Palace, but Ichigo, when traveling this same exact distance, took 9 hours and 15 minutes to make it down at his maximum speed, also making this a MFTL feat. And if you also take into account his various amps that he receives, with, for example, his Bankai amp, which gives him a 5 to 10 times amp to all of his stats, it's easily shown that Ichigo was around MFTL to MFTL plus in terms of speed. And when it comes to Ichigo's hacks and abilities, he has some interesting things that can give him an edge. As I said previously, Ichigo has access to Bankai, which increases his stats by the max of 10 times. He can also use Holification, which is a similar amp to his Bankai, at a low ball, giving him at least 20 times amps to his stats. Ichigo can also negate hacks and physical damage if he's stronger than his opponent, and has access to various different forms that can increase his stats in combat. But a particular transformation I would like to talk about is Horn of Salvation Ichigo. This version of Ichigo can passively change fate while battling, making him a very formidable opponent. And now that I've gone over all of Ichigo's powers and abilities, it is time to answer the question that everyone has been waiting to hear. Who would win between the Spartan Kratos and the poster boys of the big three of shonen anime? The answer to this question is without a doubt Kratos, and I'll explain why. I'll start with Luffy first, since he's the weakest out of everybody here. Luffy has the lowest stats out of every character in this battle, and he would immediately get blitzed and one-shotted by Kratos. Many people will bring up his Gear 5 and him having Toon Force and using his imagination, but Luffy doesn't have Toon Force, or at least has extremely small amounts of it. And not only that, but he's limited by his imagination, and he won't be able to utilize his imagination when he gets immediately blitzed and one-shotted. So I'm sorry everybody, but planetary Luffy with MFTL to MFTL plus speed is just not beating low complex multi infinite 4D to infinite 5D Kratos with immeasurable and inaccessible speed. Next up is Naruto, and he fares a little bit better than Luffy, but still not strong enough to beat Kratos. Even if you were to grant him universal AP from Kaguya, which again I don't agree with, he would still be heavily outpaced by Kratos, who is just more than infinitely faster than him, and would again just perception blitz and one-shot Naruto. None of his hacks and abilities would also work on Kratos, and even if he was to use Baryon mode, it would just be a waste and still wouldn't make up the difference in stats between the two. So Naruto as well also falls in this battle. And lastly, we have Ichigo, and I do think that he would perform better than Naruto and Luffy, but again, he would still lose. I would like to quickly bring this up since I know people will ask, but Kratos would also be able to see Ichigo. Kratos has been shown being able to see and interact with ghosts and spirits and souls, so yes, he would be able to fight Ichigo, and just like Naruto and Luffy, Ichigo would also lose as well. Even if we have Ichigo using his highest form, which would be his Horn of Salvation, and able to rewrite or change fate, Kratos is also somebody that can also rewrite and change fate. That was literally one of his main arcs in the Greek games, and also a major arc in one of the Norse games. And plus the AP and speed difference is again just too great. Even if you have these three work together and fight them at once, it still wouldn't make a difference. So to wrap up this video, Kratos would just be able to beat the big three, and the battle is just completely one-sided. Thank you all for watching my video, and please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and comment. And please don't forget to follow me on Twitter, as I do interact with people on there and am active. And if you want to see a Kratos, Luffy, Naruto, or Ichigo eccentric video, then I have them up on screen right now. Thank you all for watching my video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.